Hey y'all, so I'm gonna sit outside today and try to get some air. I've had a rough day thinking about my mama. I don't know why, I don't know what's triggered it. It's just been a bad day. A lot of you don't know the story of my mom and what happened with her and how she lived the last 8 or 9 years of her life. But Mama has had diabetes for years, and she had these sores on her legs, and they kept getting worse and worse. And it started off with a toe being amputated, then a little bit more than half of her foot, and then eventually her left leg was amputated below the knee, about 6 inches below the knee. It took us forever to get it healed. She had a wound vac on it. I had to learn how to do wound vacs, and she got MRSA in it, so I had to learn how to do IVs, vancomycin, to give her IVs at home for 6 to 8 weeks. And that was still when she was living at her house. And then she started getting more sores on the right leg, and the same sort of thing happened. She would lose part of her foot, and then it went to below the knee on it. Again, got MRSA in the amputation wound. And then that was in April of 2012, her second amputation. And then in July, she had a stroke, her second stroke. But this one was a major one, and it affected the whole left side of her body. And she was paralyzed on the left side. So on top of being a double amputee, which she had learned to move herself back and forth on a board, sliding, and was able to take care of herself in a wheelchair. But after the stroke paralyzing and debilitating the left side of her body, she was left with just a right arm because she had no legs. And then her left arm was gone, dead, and her left leg was dead. So she could move her right leg, but she couldn't do anything with the stump. And then she just had her right arm. So she came to live with me in 2012, and I took care of her. Home health care came like once a week, and Mom went through many bouts of pneumonia, which they would always give her some kind of IV antibiotic for us to give her here at home. And I learned how to do that. And at the time, she had a PICC line, or would always get a PICC line at the hospital, and then would come home for a home IV therapy. And then they got to where it hurt her to have so many PICC lines, and she was getting infections in the PICC lines and everything. So they put a port in up here like they do with cancer patients that have to have constant chemo or anything like that. But her port was for antibiotic treatments and for blood, because her blood was always low from so many high-powered antibiotics. So she had a port put in. And then she was doing okay for a while. And then one day she was going down the ramp here at the house, and her wheelchair failed, and it knocked her forward on the ramp, and she fell out of the wheelchair, and the wheelchair fell. It was a hover round, fell on top of her and broke her hip, her left hip. She went to the hospital. They did not fix her hip because it was a fracture, but it was not out of place. So considering that was the dead leg, she could not move, and she also was not mobile. There was no point in putting her through a major surgery that could constitute in her having MRSA again, but having it in the bone, having it, So they didn't fix it. They said, it would kind of heal itself. Now, had she been mobile and walking, it would have been a different story. They would try to have fixed it so that she could walk again. But once that hip got broke, Mama kind of went downhill. And they always say with older people, once they break their hip, they go downhill. Well, it's not always true, but it was true in Mama's case. And she ended up having to get a catheter put in. And she already was in a Hoyer lift, which is a lift that lifts her up. And she was in like a sling, like a chair type thing, and it had a potty hole in it, since she had no legs and couldn't move, that we could lift her up and move her over to the potty to go pee or whatever, and then we'd clean her up, and then she'd be lifted back and put into her recliner or into her wheelchair. But then once she broke this hip, they put a catheter in because it hurt her hip so bad to be lifted in this Hoyer lift. It would hurt that hip. So they put a catheter in, and then she dealt with constant urinary tract infections from catheters because they carry so much bacteria anyway on a normal person that's not sick. And then with her immune system already being down, she constantly got some kind of Pseudomonas or MRSA or something that's a major infection that causes for 6 to 8 weeks of high-powered antibiotics that then cause other problems like blood loss and hemoglobin not happening, and the bone marrow not making red blood cells, so it causes a bunch of other issues. And so Mama kind of went downhill, and she would still get her pneumonia. Just about every time it started getting cold, she would get pneumonia. And then here we'd go back on antibiotics for that. And it was just a constant battle. And I'm sure a lot of you followed us along the way. And I should have made a page just for Mama of things and following her. But they're in my page all along this stuff. But let's see. In February of last year, the end of February, she went to the emergency room at Forsyth Hospital in Winston-Salem because she thought she had pneumonia again. And when they did a CAT scan of her lungs, they found a spot. And then in a couple days, they did a biopsy, and, it came back as cancer of her lung. And they were going to try to do radiation on it to at least give her more time, because they could not go in and take it out because of her MRSA issues and everything else. But they were going to try radiation. But anyway, then the main guy from the hospital called and said that she's not going to be able to go through radiation because they can't get to it. It was going to burn her lung, burn her esophagus, and everything else. So they couldn't do it. And that was in March of last year. Well, she just kept not doing well and had constantly got pneumonia or UTIs. And then in December, she was put into the hospital for what we thought was another UTI. She always got delirious and didn't know what was going on and not coherent. She wouldn't answer you, so you could kind of tell when she was getting an infection. And plus the pee, you could tell in her pee. And if you've been around sick people long enough, you can tell in their pee the way it smells, the way it looks. There's white blood cells in it. There's you see, and I learned to look for that stuff. And so we took her to the hospital. Well, the ambulance came and took her to the hospital, and she was put into the ICU and on a ventilator immediately because she was so out of it from having this horrible infection that she was restricting her own bloodway with her tongue because she was just kind of, and she couldn't breathe, so they put a ventilator in. And that I'd never seen her on a ventilator before. I'd seen her on a BiPAP and a CPAP, but never a ventilator, and it scared me. And she was out of it. They had used propofol on her to knock her out, which is what Michael Jackson overdosed on. But that's what they give a lot of people to try to keep them sedated when they're in the ICU on a ventilator and they're fighting the ventilator. And then about the third day she was in there, they took her off the ventilator because they wanted to see if she could do it, because there's a time limit. And once you're past that time limit, you usually don't do as well. And when they try to take you off, I'm shaking, so you'll have to pardon me, but my nerves are kind of rattled. They had taken her off probably about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'd come home to go to a basketball game with Ethan, and I got a phone call from the doctor on duty saying that they were going to have to put her back on the ventilator, that she was just not breathing well. And Mama's wishes were to fight for her as long as possible. She did not want the ventilator cut off. And the doctors told me the whole time she was in there, every time they came to see me daily, that I needed to just cut the ventilator off, that there was nothing else they could do, that, her white blood count was going out in the roof, blah, blah, blah. I said, that's not what she wants. And I said, I have her power of attorney written here. I am the power of attorney. She has discussed this with me. She's been sick for many years. This is what she wants, and I'm not killing her. And I didn't kill her. So, she ended up dying January 3rd. They had told me January 2nd that her white blood count, a normal white blood count for a normal person is around 3 to 8-ish, and then if it starts going over 6, that 6 to 8 or 12 or 15, whatever, then it's a sign of infection. Mama was on 6 antibiotics, IV antibiotics, while in the ICU, and the day before she died, her white blood count was at 85,000. So these antibiotics were doing absolutely nothing, and it was getting worse. She had C. diff, she had pneumonia, she had the UTI, she had the lung cancer, she had wounds on her butt that were infected, she had Pseudomonas in those, so she was very sick, and nothing was helping. And they had told us the day before, she's got 24 to 48 hours, you may want to call in family to come see her. Well, there was no family really to come see her. So she died January 3rd. And I'm an only child. I was very close to my mother. I was not very close to my dad. My dad was fairly abusive, but he was still my daddy, and I loved him. And we made amends before he died in 98. But I was a mama's girl. And when she said no to something, I'd go to daddy, and he would always say yes. But I was truly a mama's girl, and I took care of her. And my mama did everything for me. She helped me get my house. She helped me do everything. There wasn't a day went by, even when I lived in Virginia and she lived in North Carolina, that I didn't talk to my mother. She was everything to me. She still is everything to me. And that's why dealing with this is so hard. And some days are very hard. I don't know why. The holiday season is going to be very hard for me this year, because it's Mama Love Thanksgiving, because her birthday is November 25th. So a lot of times it landed on Thanksgiving. So that was always her holiday. And she always said she was a turkey baby. And so it's going to be hard. And, you know, last Christmas she was in the ICU, so she wasn't here. And we all had a hard time even then, you know, looking at her recliner. And Mama wasn't there. But it's going to be really hard this year. She's not there, but she's not anywhere here either. She's in heaven. And yes, I can talk to her there, but it's not like here. And it kills me daily, and it's something that I have to try to deal with every day. And a lot of people don't understand. I make posts about my mom. Can't you just get over it? No, I can't. And I never will. And it doesn't get any easier. You just learn to better handle it. And some days I go all to hell, and that better handling it doesn't happen. And it could be at work and somebody comes in and they smell like my mom, they have on her perfume, or I see a Lincoln Town car pull in, because that was Mama's car of choice for years. She had like four or five of them. That was just her favorite. And it'll spark something, and I have to go to the bathroom and I lose my crap, because I'm just that upset, and it's not any better than it was to begin with. So I just wanted to explain kind of what it is with Mama. And me and Jeremy, my husband, did not work from 2012 until when Mom died this year, because it took both of us to take care of her 24 hours a day. One person could not do it, and she couldn't. And I promised her I'd never put her in a home, and and I didn't. She helped me, financially here while I took care of her, and that's what we did. And then once she passed away in January, me and Jeremy hadn't worked in 6, 7, 8 years, and we had to get out and get jobs, which is normal. I mean, I'm not complaining about that, but we had to restart our lives all over. And try to get ourselves together. We're still not together. We're still behind on a lot of stuff, because things happened when Mama passed away, and it is what it is. But we're better than we were, so thank God for that. But, we're doing all we can. So just kind of bear with me when you see me post things about my mom, or that it bothers you, because it bothers me too. But I want to remember her every day. I never want to forget her. I never will forget her. I would do absolutely anything to bring her back. I would shorten my life to bring my mom back. And I know that's crazy. A lot of people would say, no, you shouldn't do that. I would, because I miss her that bad. And I know I'll see her again someday. And there's little things that happen, and I know she's still kind of here. But she's not here, if that makes sense. So just kind of bear with me. And now at least you know what's wrong with, my situation, everything that's happened. And with my car, my mom had left me her handicap conversion van, which was a 2012 Dodge. And they paid like $70,000 for that van that had a ramp. And it had these air things that lowered the ramp to self-level it to whatever kind of hill it was on, or anything, so that she could get her wheelchair in and out of it. And she left me that van. And the gas on it was killing me. And we needed 2 cars, because Jeremy works in South Winston, which is the 30-minute drive one way. I work here in Pinnacle, but we work different hours. So I traded her van and got my Honda and got his car out of it. And, I had a lot of stuff done to my Honda after Mama passed away, with the little bit of money that she had left me, because that car means everything to me. That's why the back of it says in memory of Mom, whatever, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have it. I wouldn't have this home. I wouldn't be where I am today without her. So anyway, I just wanted to fill you all in, the ones that don't know. There's plenty of you that do know. But this is my life. I work at Dollar General. I'm an assistant manager there. I do the best I can. I could go to Winston and have a 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 office job, probably paying a lot more, but then I'm going to have gas money, wear and tear on my car, and I have to find somebody to take care of Ethan in the mornings and the evenings, and I can't do that. So I work where I work, and it's less than a mile from home, and I can take care of that and take care of Ethan and whatever in the mornings to get him to school. And then by the evenings, Jeremy's off at 2:30, 3 o'clock, and he gets home about the time Ethan does, and it works out, and it's best for us. So that's our life, and that's kind of where we're at. And we have good days and we have bad days, and most days we just have normal days. But there are times, many times, that my heart is broken, and I have these days that are horrible. So just pray for us, pray for me, and if you have your mama and you have your daddy, love them, because it's so hard when they're gone. There's no words to describe that. So anyway, I just wanted to let you all know how everything goes here, and the meanings behind things that happen. And I appreciate all the love and support and prayers all of you have given us throughout the years, that have been my friend and family, and just, we love you, and I hope you have a good day. Just give us a little prayer if you can. Thanks.